My shadow on the road didn't match my car's shape. The night had been thick with fog since the moment I left the last gas station. The kind of fog that hangs low and wet, swallowing the road into a muted gray void. My headlights pierced the mist in narrow cones, illuminating the slick asphalt in short, trembling bursts before the shadows of the trees reasserted themselves. The glow of the dashboard was the only other light in the car, casting an unsteady orange halo across my hands as I gripped the wheel tighter than usual. I had been driving for hours, the highway stretching like a black ribbon, endless and unyielding. There had been no other cars, no passing headlights, only the occasional flash of wet leaves reflecting my beams. The hum of the tires against the worn asphalt became hypnotic, a monotone lullaby broken by the sudden, sharp rasp of wind through the trees. Then I noticed it. At first, I thought it was a trick of the fog, a smear of darkness in the distance, where the road should have been just another patch of gleaming asphalt. But as I watched, it took shape. My shadow, or what I assumed was my shadow. It stretched across the road ahead, cast by my headlights. Except, it didn't match my car's shape. Not exactly. The outline was wrong, jagged, uneven. The doors seemed elongated, the roof twisted. I blinked, shook my head, tried to convince myself it was the mist playing games. But the shadow persisted, growing as I drove, stretching unnaturally forward, like a dark river moving over the road. My car's headlights cut through the fog, but the shadow didn't react naturally. It slithered forward in patches, sometimes splitting, sometimes lurching, as if it had a life of its own. I slowed down instinctively, my knuckles whitening on the wheel. The fog thickened as if in response, curling around the shadow, amplifying its size, making the asphalt appear endless. The familiar white dashed lines of the highway began to waver, elongating, wavering, like someone had drawn them in trembling ink. I remembered the stories I'd heard as a kid, warnings whispered on cold autumn nights. Shadows aren't always yours. Sometimes they're echoes. Sometimes they're warnings. My rational mind laughed at me, but a deep, instinctual chill had settled in my spine. I couldn't stop staring at it. The shadow moved oddly now, pausing in patches where the road was clear. It began to coalesce, forming shapes within shapes. For a moment, I thought I saw a figure crouching in the outline of my rear tire. Then another, standing tall, limbs stretching beyond what should be possible, merging with the contours of the hood. My pulse thrummed in my ears, loud enough that I feared it would drown out everything else. I blinked again, and when I looked, it had changed. The shadow no longer resembled a car at all. It was something else, a mass of twisted limbs and impossible angles, yet still familiar, still tethered to me. I realized with a sickening certainty that the forms weren't random. They were echoes of people I knew, people I had loved and lost. Faces appeared, blurry and wet in the darkness, features warped by the fog, mouths open in silent screams that never reached my ears. The road bent, or perhaps it was me. The dashed lines twisted under my headlights, forming patterns that made the horizon ripple like heat on concrete. Trees along the roadside leaned inward, their branches clawing toward me as the fog thickened into a wall. I could hear it then, soft, almost imperceptible, a low scratching, like nails along metal. Not on my car, but in the shadow itself. I slammed the brakes instinctively, and the shadow jolted in response. It leapt forward, stretching impossibly toward the forest, brushing the edges of my headlights. The car's interior seemed suddenly too bright, too small, and yet the dashboard glow reflected something in the windshield that shouldn't be there. Eyes. Not mine. Eyes staring from within the fog, black, endless, framed by twisted, shadowy faces that flitted just out of focus. I tried to speak, tried to call out, but my voice caught in my throat. The radio, which had been silent all evening except for static bursts, suddenly sputtered with a low, droning hum. Then came the whispers, not loud enough to understand, just fragments, syllables and voices I recognized but couldn't place. Drive, faster, slower, look. I pressed the accelerator, desperate to escape, but the road seemed to lengthen. Each mile marker I passed reappeared moments later, warped numerals glowing dimly in the fog. 57, 57, 57. I tried turning the wheel, taking curves, but the highway refused to bend. It was a straight corridor of mist and asphalt, stretching further than any highway should, pulling me forward into the unknown. The shadow had grown to cover the road entirely now, a living thing writhing beneath my headlights. Limbs, faces, hands reaching toward me. I realized, with a quiet horror, that it was trying to mimic me. Not my car, not my body, but my mind, my memories, my fears, the people I had lost and forgotten, twisted into a single writhing entity. I forced myself to look away, focusing on the dashboard, the speedometer climbing despite the fog. My heart felt heavy, as if the shadow were pressing down on my chest. And then I saw it, my rearview mirror. Normally mundane, now reflecting something impossible. Not the back of my car, not the empty highway behind me, but a hallway. Long, narrow, dimly lit, lined with the faces from the shadow, staring, whispering. The steering wheel jerked. The car veered slightly, the tires skimming over wet leaves at the edge of the asphalt. I gripped the wheel, trying to calm myself. The shadow seemed to react, thrashing, stretching toward the roadside, then retracting. I realized I was no longer driving on asphalt in the normal sense. The road itself was bending, folding beneath me, collapsing into patches of darkness, while the fog congealed above like smoke in a cellar. A street sign appeared in the distance, warped and unreadable at first, then coming into focus. "Welcome to," it read, and then the letters changed before my eyes. Not a town, not a city, but names. Names I recognized. Names of people I had buried in memory, people I had abandoned, people I had loved and let fade. My breath hitched. The shadow beneath me pulsed in response, limbs stretching toward the sign, reaching for the letters, swallowing them into itself. I knew then that this was not random. The highway, the fog, the bending reality, they were responding to me, to my memories, to my guilt, to the parts of myself I had tried to ignore. The shadow had always been there, just hidden beneath the veneer of normalcy, waiting for me to notice, waiting for me to acknowledge it. I screamed. I hit the brakes. The car skidded slightly on the slick asphalt, but the shadow didn't falter. It rose, a tower of writhing darkness in the fog, stretching past my headlights, past the canopy of trees, past the limits of reason. And then it split. Part of it remained on the road. Part of it climbed inside the car. I felt a weight on my shoulder, cold and wet, like fog condensed into skin. I could see it in the corner of my eye, an arm long and thin, stretching across the interior of the car, a hand almost skeletal, pressing lightly against me. I tried to swat it away, but it wasn't physical. It was perception, thought, memory, guilt made flesh and shadow. I slammed the car into a low-speed spin, tires squealing, fog curling around me like smoke, and everything shifted. The shadow disappeared for a heartbeat. I exhaled, thought I had escaped. Then I looked up. On the road, projected by my own headlights, the shadow had returned. But it wasn't beneath the car anymore. It was ahead, on the horizon, standing upright, perfectly humanoid. Waiting. I tried to move, tried to drive forward, but the road stretched endlessly. The trees leaned closer. The fog thickened. The dashboard glow flickered. The whispers returned. Louder now, a chorus of voices speaking my name. I understood, in that moment, that I had not just been driving. I had been invited, lured. And whatever this shadow was, it was patient, could wait for me, could wait forever. I don't remember how long I drove after that. The road blurred. Time became a slippery illusion. But I remember the last thing I saw before the fog swallowed everything. The shadow stepping off the asphalt, into the forest, and turning to watch me, perfectly still, perfectly alive, waiting for me to join it. I haven't stopped driving since. And sometimes, in the rearview mirror, I see it. My shadow, waiting, waiting for me to look away. the cyclist who didn't touch the ground. I had been driving for nearly an hour, the highway disappearing into fog so thick it could have been a solid wall. My headlights carved narrow cones of light across the slick asphalt, and the reflection off the wet road made every curve feel like it stretched into infinity. The glow from the dashboard was a dim orange, illuminating my hands on the wheel, my knuckles white with tension, and casting a faint reflection onto the windshield that flickered as I passed under the occasional broken street lamp. The radio had gone dead hours ago, leaving only the low hum of the engine and the steady rhythm of tires against wet pavement. The smell of damp asphalt mixed with the faint metallic tang of the fog, thick and clinging, pressing against the car like an unseen hand. I was alone, utterly alone, or so I thought. Then I saw them. A cyclist, or at least someone riding a bike. At first, I thought it was normal. A dark silhouette in my headlights, pedaling steadily along the shoulder. I slowed instinctively, squinting through the fog, my pulse ticking up, but something was off. The wheels weren't touching the ground. I blinked. The tires spun freely, hovering inches above the asphalt. The pedals rotated, but there was no friction, no sound beyond the faint whir of something impossible. The cyclist floated forward as if pulled by some invisible current, moving faster than the fog should allow, passing me with an effortless glide. The air shifted around them. The fog seemed to coil and stretch in their wake, moving unnaturally, bending light and shadow into shapes that shouldn't exist. I pressed the accelerator, trying to match their pace. As I drove, the highway around me seemed to stretch. Trees leaned inward, their branches twisting toward me, fog curling like smoke, forming semi-transparent shapes that mimicked the cyclist's outline. The road markings warped beneath my tires, the dashed lines elongating and breaking apart, reforming like they were alive. The cyclist was silent, featureless from a distance. The glow of my headlights revealed only a dark figure, hunched over the handlebars. Their hair, or something like hair, whipped in a wind that didn't exist. And yet, as I drew closer, the figure seemed to retreat, floating ahead, untouchable. My reflection in the rearview mirror betrayed no one else in the car, yet I felt watched. Constantly, I remembered suddenly, a childhood memory of a bike accident, a friend who had vanished on a night much like this, fog rolling in from the hills, headlights smeared across wet asphalt. My heart thumped. Could this be a memory, a ghost, or just exhaustion playing tricks? The fog thickened, blurring the edges of the highway. Street signs flickered as I passed, next exit, and then letters I didn't recognize. The cyclist passed one of these signs, and I swear the shadow stretched from the sign itself, reaching for them. Yet they moved onward without resistance, tires still floating, pedaling faster than logic allowed. I tried to swerve, tried to turn away, but the highway looped unnaturally. Curves I had already passed reappeared ahead, mirrored in the fog like a cruel trick. Every attempt to break the pattern failed. The cyclist remained ahead, a dark anchor, gliding effortlessly, untouchable. My tires hissed over the wet asphalt, the sound almost comforting and yet sinister, drowned by the low, whispering hum that had begun to rise from the fog itself. I noticed then how the wheels never slowed. Even when the cyclist drifted up slight inclines or hovered over patches of road littered with puddles, the tires spun, unbroken, untouched. The pedals rotated smoothly, the chain glinting under the headlights in a way that seemed too sharp, too unnatural. I realized with a creeping dread that they weren't merely floating. They were untethered from the rules of the world itself. A sudden gust of wind, impossible on a calm night, buffeted the car. My headlights flared, reflecting in the windshield, and for a heartbeat I saw their face. Pale, featureless yet familiar. I blinked and it was gone. But the impression lingered. They were not just a figure. They were someone I had known, someone I had forgotten, someone I had lost. The fog itself seemed to react now. My mirrors twisted reflections, showing stretches of road I had already passed, headlights splitting into multiple points of light that darted ahead and behind me. The road's surface rippled, puddles forming and vanishing, as if the asphalt was liquid. Gravity became suspect. I felt a weightlessness in my chest, a rising, pulling sensation, as though my own body was being measured against the impossible cyclist. I thought I might scream. My mouth opened, closed, but no sound emerged. The whir of the chain, the spin of tires above the ground, the rhythmic pedaling. It became a heartbeat I couldn't escape. I realized I had been following them for miles, yet the surroundings betrayed no distance passed. Time had fractured. A mile marker I passed blinked 12, 12, 12. I tried to stop. My foot slammed the brake, tires screeching against wet asphalt. The fog swirled violently, and for a fleeting moment, the cyclist paused, hanging midair like a suspended note. Then they turned. I swear I saw eyes, hollow and deep, staring at me. And with a tilt of the head, a slight gesture, they beckoned me forward. The road returned to some semblance of normalcy, but only in appearance. My dashboard reflected the faint outline of their figure in the rearview mirror. It was behind me now, or was it ahead? Impossible to tell. I couldn't stop staring. I realized, too late, that every attempt to escape only drew me further into their orbit. A distant streetlight flickered on, revealing a narrow bridge up ahead. The cyclist passed it first, wheels still hovering, pedaling into nothing. I followed, unwilling, compelled, my tires gripping asphalt that felt too solid, too fleeting. My own reflection in the side mirror warped and unrecognizable. As I crossed, the fog shifted, revealing the road beyond to be not asphalt, but a black void. And the cyclist turned. For the first time, perfectly still, hovering above the nothing. Their face was clear now, impossibly clear, impossibly familiar. I recognized them. A memory I had buried, a friend I had let fade into oblivion, the one I had failed to save on a night that seemed just like this. I swerved instinctively. The tires hissed. The dashboard light flickered. And when I dared to look again, they were gone. The road ahead stretched on, unbroken. The fog thickened, swallowing the edges of the world. Yet I knew they were still there, waiting, floating just out of reach, pedaling in silence, a reminder of things I had tried to forget. I drove on, my pulse a relentless drum, headlights carving feeble paths through the fog. And sometimes, when the mist curls too tightly and the asphalt gleams like glass, I see the silhouette above the road, spinning effortlessly, pedaling through a world that does not obey the rules. And I know, with a cold certainty, that one day, if I follow too closely, I will pedal with them.